Good evening, everyone. It's just wonderful to be able to present to you this evening. It's Wednesday night, Wednesday, September 30th. It is just great to be here to provide our community with an update on the reopening. Mrs. O'Shea, are you able to hear me okay?
I am, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. O'Shea, for joining me this evening. Thank you to Ms. Forsberg and Ms. Burns for being on this call as well. I appreciate you being here to help with the technical aspect. We're trying something new tonight. We have opened up the Q&A webinar feature within the program. So if there are questions, you're able to click on the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. I would just ask that you give me the opportunity to go through the presentation, and then we'll be happy to read the questions that have come in, and Ms. O'Shea will assist me in that. I have a very limited view on my screen, and we'll certainly do our best to address as many of the questions as we can this evening. So I wanted to provide our community with just a brief update as to where we are in our school reopening. We have taken a very cautious and careful approach to the reopening, and it's something that I believe has been the responsible approach. And I thank our faculty and staff, our school building principals, our students, our parents for really respecting the protocols that we put into place. I know they're not easy to follow. I know the idea of wearing a mask throughout the course of the day is not easy. I understand that if there are other protocols that are in place that you wonder about, and you say, gee, why is the school going to this measure? It's all part of an effort to, number one, keep our students, our faculty and staff healthy and safe. It's also part of our plan. If we can keep our students, faculty and staff healthy and safe, we want to keep our school buildings open so that we can continue welcoming students back. We began the sports, the athletic season, the fall athletic season, and okay, the students had masks on, and that I understand, but it was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful to be able to see our students back onto the fields, to open up our fields for our student athletes, open up our tennis courts for the student athletes. We don't have any indoor activities happening right now. I'm hoping that we can protect our progress and preserve our progress so that at some point we can open up indoor activities for our students. Right now, everything is outside, but we're pleased nonetheless to be able to welcome back our students and athletics and some of the after-school activities, and we'll speak more about that momentarily. The updates that I'm going to provide you, and Mrs. O'Shea will assist me throughout the evening in complementing some of the points that I raise and answering some of the questions that are posed. And again, I would just ask, we're going to talk about transportation, we're going to talk about technology, we're going to talk about the Monday schedule, the French Hill program, we're going to also talk about the free lunch program, we're going to talk about the Easy Screen daily health screening app. So I would just ask for your patience with the questions so that I can deliver the presentation, and surely if there are questions that exist, we'll be happy to answer those. For the attendees, the webinar is limited to 500 people, 500 participants. So we have also posted a YouTube live link. So if anyone happens to send you a message that they're having trouble getting on to this webinar, we have also posted this live on YouTube. The question and answer option does not exist in the YouTube live platform. So that's only for the first 500 attendees in this meeting is where the Q&A resides. So with regard to the transportation update, we'll start there. As you know, Bauman Bus Company went out of business. I've shared this in the past. I've shared this with our community numerous times in the past. And as a result of that, when you go through the bankruptcy proceedings, the contracts that the organization holds are considered assets. So our contract was considered an asset, and it was determined through the bankruptcy courts and through the proceedings that Total Transportation would be our provider. Total Transportation has a wonderful reputation in the region. They have several local accounts. They have a very, very large bus depot in Brooklyn, and their management has been very receptive to the feedback that we've provided them. With that said, they have been disappointingly inconsistent, and we have taken them to task on this. Every day I have a call with the management team. And if it's not me on the phone, it's Mr. Cole on the phone with their senior management team. I was on the phone twice with them today, sharing with them the experiences that are being shared with me. So they're making progress. This is, I believe, their 10th day driving in the district, 5 days with the A-day route, 5 days with the B-day route. We're going to continue having these conversations until they can perform at the level of service that our students deserve. That's a non-negotiable. So I'm aware of the issues. I thank the community for bringing those issues forward. And it's through those notifications that I'm able to address directly with the senior management. So today I was on the phone with the general manager of the company and the CEO of the company at 2 different times of the day, sharing with them some of the things that I have observed and that have been shared with me. So we understand the concerns. We are working around the clock on the transportation concerns. When Total took over the contract at the end of August, or mid to late August, I believe it was around August 17th. It was a Friday evening, if I recall correctly, in late August. And we spoke to them about our expectations. They knew that they had to ramp up with hiring. We have a 71 bus fleet. So I know they were able to retain many of the drivers from Bauman. However, there were many drivers who had to go find employment elsewhere. When you get to late summer, it's hard to wait on where Yorktown's going to be or where Total Transportation will be in their process. So they have hired a lot of new staff. The staff have to meet very rigorous standards. And if they're not meeting those standards, which we've had experiences of them not meeting those standards, they will be held accountable. And that's, again, a non-negotiable for us. So we're aware of the transportation piece. We are continuing to address it. We understand that it's a very new relationship that we have with them. They have committed to the work. I'm seeing incremental progress. And when I say incremental progress, is I look at a 71 bus fleet system that has 4 runs throughout the course of the day, and AM and PM, right? So it's 4 runs in the morning, 4 runs in the afternoon. As I look at the delay times, as I look at the arrival times, many of you at the middle school and high school, even at Crom Pond and at Brookside, you have seen me outside. And what you'll see me doing is looking at my watch incrementally. And it's not necessarily to do anything more than to understand the times, how many buses are still outstanding, and where are we with our delays, because the children need to arrive to school on time, they need to be picked up on time, and they need to get home on time. And they need to do all of this safely. So we're aware of that. We've provided the drivers with the turn-by-turn directions so that they're more familiar with the routes. They're traveling the routes every other day. So the turn-by-turn for now until some of the new drivers, the 40 some odd Bauman drivers who were retained, we're certainly well aware of. And they're aware of the town and they're aware of the routes of our buses. So it's some of the new drivers that we're bringing up to speed. And I think the vast majority have come up to speed, but we're not there yet. And we're not going to be there until all of the buses are where our students deserve them to be. So that is the update with regard to transportation. It's something that we're certainly continuing to address, and we will not lose sight of this. I had a call with a parent just moments ago, and I had a call with the CEO at around 6 p.m. this afternoon to just have our daily catch up. With regard to the next topic on this evening's discussion, or within this evening's discussion, is our technology update. So I understand that technology has been a source of frustration at times. We have had some outages, and of all of the challenges that we're facing, we learned that Google had a regional outage twice. That's not very common. Google is one of the more reliable platforms. They've had 2 outages. They issued a letter to the field today that we accessed, outlining some of the Google Meet concerns that we have articulated to them, and they explain some of the reasons as to why that happened and steps that they're taking and the timeline for the steps that they're taking. One thing I would just ask, I put this in the letter from a week ago. I'll put this in a follow-up letter. If you can just have your child restart their device daily. Google is pushing out updates every day now, beginning, I believe it was Monday, they began pushing out updates. If you can just have your child restart their device, that will automatically install the new upgrades that are being pushed out by Google. So that would be helpful. We also, Wednesday evening, or Wednesday afternoon, it was resolved Wednesday evening, but Wednesday afternoon, we identified some connectivity issues within our internal servers. We resolved those Wednesday night, and since Thursday of last week, our network has been operating at an optimal level. Right now, if there are issues, they're more isolated, they're related to a device, and they're very limited at this point. So I think that you'll find the connectivity, the audio, the lag between when someone moves their mouth and you actually hear the sound has been reduced, if not diminished completely. So we have identified the issues, we have addressed the issues, there are good fixes in place, and I would never tell you that we're not going to have another technology outage, because I think anyone who works with technology understands that we are going to have outages at some point. Third-party platforms will go down. It honestly is just part of working in an online environment. Technology will fail from time to time, and we're aware of that. And we have a great team led by Ms. Forsberg, who will make sure that the technology gets back up and running as soon as possible. With the technology, just on one point, we have a lot of devices going. We have loaned out, I think we're at about 2,000 devices, K-12 at this point. We're at so many devices are out of the district. Our teachers are using multiple devices within the classroom, and with that volume, there is just bound to be a drain on the network. But I do think that we have addressed the issue as of Wednesday night. And like I said, since Wednesday night, it has been a pretty seamless platform that we've had. Again, should issues arise, we'll address them as we become aware of them. Should there be issues outside of our control that are the result of a third-party vendor, we'll absolutely work with the third-party vendor to make sure that that platform is up and running as soon as possible. So I apologize for the frustration. I really apologize for the technology troubles that some have had. Not all. There have been some areas that have been more affected by the technology outages than others, and we're cognizant of that, and I do certainly apologize for any outages, whether they were a function of our network or whether they were a function of a third-party platform not operating. Now, there's some other, we're aware certainly there are hack applications that are out there for Zoom hacks, and there are Google Meet hacks that we've become familiar with. That's something we take really seriously, and we do monitor a great deal of the traffic that comes through our network, IP addresses and so on and so forth. And I don't know if I should be giving all of that information, but please know that if we become aware of someone who intentionally interferes with our remote learning platform, it would be addressed swiftly. In terms of the Monday schedule, I'll speak to that at this point. The Monday schedule has been something that has raised a lot of questions, and the questions actually go back to the idea of why can't we just have everyone in? Why can't A day, B day, why can't the entire school come in? And I just want to come back and I spoke to this at great length in August, but I thought it would be worth a reminder. So in the videos that are posted to our reopening website from August, I speak to it in probably greater detail than I will this evening, but I think it's worth addressing. The State Department of Health, the State Education Department, those are the organizations that really regulate us, and our medical director, who has the ability to shut the district if he determines it's appropriate to do so. The recommendation is 6 feet of space. So we have 6 feet of space, and we have masks that the children are wearing throughout the course of the day. That inherently limits capacity. So in a class where we're able to get 24, 26, 27 in years past, once you factor in that we need a 6 foot radius, a 6 foot space around a child, that reduces, and it's not a 6-foot radius necessarily, but once we get a 6-foot space around a child, that limits how many students you can put into a classroom. So now the question is, well, what about the other spaces within the school? What about the band room and the library and the cafeteria and the gymnasium and all those other spaces? Well, our building capacity, and you may recall, we had some public Board of Education meetings where Dr. Seversky presented a school capacity report to our community. It was about a year ago, just under a year ago, the capacity study was done, and we learned that our school building, which we knew, but we weren't able to quantify the extent to which our school buildings were utilized. Each of our elementary schools are used between 80 and 90%. The capacity, functional capacity, is at upwards of 90% usage. If you look at today's enrollment numbers, we're at between 83 and 93% at the elementary level of the functional capacity being used. That doesn't leave a lot of space available within the school to place students. So we don't have the space to have our students spread out, socially distant, in a gymnasium, in a cafeteria. We're actually looking to, at some point, have the children come back into the cafeteria and have lunch. And we'll talk about actually the free lunch program. That's another topic that we'll add to, because that's, I think that's on the minds of many in our community. So I'll add that to the discussion as well. So we don't have the space. At 93% building usage capacity, there's not a space available. Even if we had the space, there's a level of supervision that must accompany the space, and nor do we have that. So our schools are at such high usage and such high capacity that there are some schools in the region that do have the space, and they'll have a second gym, or they have rooms that aren't being utilized that they can convert to spaces. And that's a great problem to have. It's not one that we have. So our capacity is inherently limited, and that's where the A-Day, B-Day model comes into play. With that understanding, when we look at Mondays, in the best case scenario, students are in on alternating Mondays, which means on alternating Mondays, students are remote, home or wherever their childcare provider is located. So alternating Mondays, the students are in. Now, that's our goal. That's our end goal, is to have our students in for the full day on Mondays. That's something that I've made very obvious. With regard to the day, now the structure of the day, our teachers need time to plan. They absolutely need time to plan. In fact, I've surveyed districts in the region, and most are providing their teachers with time during the school week to plan. Some are not, most are. Most are on a hybrid A-Day, B-Day model. Some are not at the elementary level. Some are bringing all of their students in. They have the space to do so. They have the staffing to do so. Most are not. With regard to the teacher planning, we've designed a remote learning model to be as engaging as possible with our students. There are some remote learning models where there's a camera facing the front of the room, and the feedback that I've been hearing about that model, and that I'm intimately familiar with, actually, is that with a mask on, it's hard to hear the teacher. It's hard to hear what's being said. It's hard to follow the lesson. It's not engaging. Our model is quite the opposite of that. We have a morning meeting time at the earliest grades. I'll speak to 7-12 momentarily. We have a morning meeting at the early elementary grades. We have a reading specialist instructing in English language arts, and we have an intervention services teacher instructing in math on the remote days. In person, it's a classroom teacher who is doing that instruction. That's all live, the remote piece. That's all direct. When I'm conducting that remote piece, all I'm focused on are the students in front of me on the computer. When I'm in the classroom, what I'm focused on are the children in front of me, and the children in front of me have my full undivided attention, and they have my full undivided support. That level of collaboration, the collaboration needed to effectively deliver that model is great. So if Mrs. O'Shea and I are teaching a class, so we have a reading teacher partnered with a classroom teacher, and the model has been effective thus far. If Mrs. O'Shea is the classroom teacher and I'm the remote learning reading teacher supporting Miss O'Shea's students, the level of collaboration between us, what Miss O'Shea teaches on Tuesday will determine what I'm teaching on Wednesday. And what I can get to teach our children on Wednesday will determine Mrs. O'Shea's Thursday planning. And we have to not only be sequential in our curriculum, we also have to make sure our delivery and our approach is common so that the students are able to follow us clearly. That takes time. That's planning. Are we looking to find other opportunities for planning time so that we can bring the students back full time? Absolutely. Absolutely, unequivocally, yes. So if we can operate under the assumption that we have to be in an A day and a B day model, and then if we can accept the premise that our faculty and staff require planning time, 7-12, our teachers are doing a screen sharing model. There's a greater level of independence at the middle school and high school, certainly middle school and high school when you compare that to an early elementary grade where it's an interactive, it's an engaging, the students are independently logging on and accessing the content and accessing the class. And that requires planning because our teachers at the secondary level are responsible for the students in front of them, the hybrid students who are on their remote day, and the fully remote students, because we are offering a fully remote option. That takes a level of planning that's unlike what has typically been the level of planning in classes. The feedback cycle for a student who's fully remote will be different than the feedback cycle of a student who is sitting in front of me. It will just look differently. That operates, so if we operate under the premise that our teachers are needing the planning time, which ultimately will serve our students, then the remainder of the day is for student instruction. So we're going to bring the students in, and I shared with our community that October 19th is the first day for the remote model that brings the students in for part of the day on a 3-hour delay on Mondays. Now the natural question arises, well, Dr. Hattar, why? And I've gotten this question several times over the weekend, and I'm in the process of replying to all of the emails that I received. I have responded to many. I've responded to many on a phone call. I'm hoping that this presentation can provide some additional insights into the rationale and the thinking behind that decision. So the question ultimately becomes, well, why not a half day? And why the 3-hour delayed model? And that's a great question. I think we all understand, and I think we all agree that anything less than a full day creates a hardship. Anything less than a full day can create a hardship. Whether it's an early release, okay, so now an early release, the high school buses leave the campus at 9:45. So we're going to take high school students, we're going to put them on a bus, and we're going to send them home from 9:45, and they'll remain home and until they are supervised again for the remainder of the day. A middle school student would be in a similar position. And at an elementary level, the early dismissals creates all kinds of hardship for families. Well, what time is the bus showing up at the bus stop, and what does that mean? And well, I need to change the dismissal procedures. And as a parent of 2 elementary school students, I am quite familiar with the hardship on either end. If we run a delayed start, it's a different hardship. It's who's going to stay with the child or children until they get on the bus, until whether it's 10:30 or 11:30. So I understand the hardship on either side. So now, well, why the 3-hour delay? Well, one of the reasons is the increased instructional time. When compared to an early dismissal, a 3-hour delay gets our children at the middle school and high school level 45 minutes of additional instructional time. And on a shortened day, if we can have more in-person time for our students, that just seems like the logical choice, to give our students as much instructional time as we can. 45, it's actually more than 45 minutes, but I'm rounding. 45 minutes is a substantial amount of time for our students. And when you take that over this 6-week period that we're talking about, that's substantial learning time in person. That's one part of it. At the elementary level, the time is not as different. However, it is still more time. It's more instructional time on a 3-hour delay as opposed to a early dismissal. That's one factor that went into the consideration. I believe that's the most important factor. And for me, that would be all the factor that I need. However, there are some other really, really important considerations. Another consideration is we have 130 athletic teams and co-curricular clubs between the middle school and high school. So if we send our middle school and high school students home in the middle of the day, I begin to think about the hardship it creates to come back for athletics, because we send the students home at dismissal half day. The teachers go through their professional development, their planning, their collaboration, the coordination, the training that we do, and then activities begin after that. So how are the middle school students getting back? How are high school students getting back? We have over 125 students maybe in each cohort who would participate in clubs at the middle school, and we have far more than that who would already be on this campus at the high school level. If we run a 3-hour delay, students come in 3 hours late, they stay to the end of the day, they're here for their athletics. That's a hardship that we're avoiding for hundreds of students. And we'll look at A day and B day and how that looks for students with regard to clubs. And at this point right now, many of the clubs are virtual, but my hope is that that's not always going to be the case. As we move into next month and as we move into November, my hope is that we can look at an in-person model. Athletics certainly is in person. The other piece of this is in last year, you may recall, November 15th and 16th, I think the dates were, we had 2 snow days in November. I believe 2 of my first 3 years, we've had a snow closure in November. If we put the half day at the front of the day for the children, so if we have the children come in the morning, if we run a 2 or 3 hour delay, and I think you know our history with 2 and 3 hour delays, we always err on the side of caution here. If we have a 2 or 3 hour delay, the students aren't coming in. It's a lost instructional day. So if we have the students coming in later and the professional development is on the front end under the model that I've shared and that I've proposed, on a 2 or 3 hour delay, should that happen in November, it doesn't affect the students. I can have the faculty and staff work remotely while we clean the campus and prepare the campus for the arrival of students, but instructional time is not affected. Should there be a weather emergency, should there be some other utility emergency in the morning that we can resolve, or overnight that we can resolve in the morning. So those are factors, and there are others, but those are the big factors that have gone into the calculus of this decision. This was very carefully planned. This was not something, and I think you recognize that, and I think you know that about me at this point, this was not something that was not given extensive thought and research and consideration. Instructional time is so important. In-person instructional time is so important. The 3 hour delay maximizes that in so many regards. So some might say, well, I have an idea, just switch the training on those days of 2 and 3 hour delays. You can just switch. It's not that simple. We're working with consultants. We're setting schedules weeks in advance. We're bringing in our local BOCES to work with us. And it's not as simple as saying, I know that we cleared 20 people's schedule at 2 p.m. Now I need you here at 8. They might not be available. Our trainers from BOCES are very busy. Our staff have other obligations throughout the course of the day. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, you can just switch the times. So those are the considerations, some of the considerations, most of the considerations that went into formulating this decision. Now, I've said this and I'll say it again. I view this as the next step in our journey to having our students return full days on Mondays. It's not if, it's when. My hope is sooner rather than later, but the time for our teachers is really, really important to me. It's really important to them, and it's really important to them, and it's really important to me because it will benefit our children. So I share that with you. The other part of this is we will be reopening full days on Mondays. I just don't know when that will be. I can't put an artificial timeline on when that will be. So I appreciate your patience. I do see us staying in this 3-hour delay or half-day 3-hour delay model for a number of weeks. I think of what I did in the letter is I outlined it through Thanksgiving. If we can bring the children in sooner, full days, I think that's wonderful, and we'll be working harder to do that, and as hard as we can to do that. But I will not affix a time stamp on it at this point. We haven't lived with the model yet. With regard to the French Hill Center, the Satellite Remote Learning Center, not many districts have been able to do this for their community. It's something that our team was really committed to, and as I was on the phone with the director of the center, the member of my team who I assigned to oversee the center, we talked about increasing capacity at French Hill on Mondays. We're going to be able to open up a little earlier on Mondays. We're looking at 7:30 to open up. There is a form on the site that is available. If there's a specific circumstance that you might have, you can share it on that form, and we'll try to accommodate you as best we can. We understand the hardship. The children can get there at 7:30. They will be grouped by cohort. They will be grouped by school. So we're trying to maintain the cohorting that we've worked so hard to achieve throughout the school day. We'll be maintaining that over at French Hill. We have now created a bus stop at French Hill to pick up children who are there on Mondays for their in-person day. We're working through the cost. We're looking at somewhere between $20 and $25 for the morning portion of the day. So that's 7:30 approximately to when the children would depart on the bus to French Hill. Our staff will get them onto the bus, and we'll make sure that they safely arrive at school. So that is where we are in that regard. That's the best information that I can provide you on Mondays. With regard to some of the other comments about the French Hill or the Mondays, Ms. O'Shea, I'm not sure if there was anything that you wanted to add to the discussion.
Not so far about the remote learning center, but I know there's some questions coming in that we can address after you go to the next. Did you want to continue with the free and reduced lunch, or did you want
we'll go through the remainder of the program. We'll talk about the free and reduced price lunch program, the easy screen, and then we'll absolutely take whatever questions are remaining. But I hope that the information that I shared with you with regard to the Mondays, I know there was some confusion. I will be following up this with presentation with a letter, and I also will be sending out the recording onto our reopening website. So you'll be able to access this, I believe, as early as tomorrow. So the next item that I'd like to share with you this evening, it's actually quite timely. The United States Department of Agriculture has initiated a free lunch program. It's a free breakfast and a free lunch program. The district doesn't participate in the national free breakfast program, so we do participate in the free lunch program. So beginning tomorrow, any student in the district will have the ability to order lunch just like they normally would. The process doesn't change, and their account won't be charged. It is a free lunch that's being offered through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Our participation in the program begins October 1st, so that's tomorrow. The student process for ordering lunch doesn't change. They would follow the same process that they would to order lunch. The only difference is that their account's not going to be charged. We'll be certainly billing the federal government for that. The program covers the first lunch. Sometimes at the high school level, some students can purchase 2 lunches, or it's the first lunch and 1 lunch that the student buys or gets that would be at no cost to them. Any of the a la carte items would be additional, so that would be for pay. With this program is due to expire December 31st of this calendar year. So it will run the entire month of October, the entire month of November, and the entire month of December on days that school is open. For students who are learning remotely, whether they're fully remote or whether they're on the remote day of the hybrid model, the program is still available. So even on the days where students are learning from home, they may come to the high school to pick up a bagged lunch. The email is yorktowngrabandgo@yorktown.org. If you go to the lunch menu website, there's information on the program. So if you go to our website, top tab says Parent Quick Links. You can click on that, go down to lunch menus. There's information on the ordering of lunch there. You can also email yorktowngrabandgo@yorktown.org for additional information. With regard to, and I'm getting just an item here. With regard to the program, it could end earlier. I just want to be very transparent and upfront. The guidance that we have been given from the federal government, and I just want to make sure that I emphasize that point, is that it's December 31st or when the funds run out, whichever is sooner. So if the funds run out in November, the program ends in November. I promise you, as soon as we know, you will know. Sometimes there is a little bit of a lag between communication from the federal government to the state government down to the local school districts or to through the USDA program. So as soon as we know, we will let you know about the expiration of the program. But we do anticipate until further notice that it will run until December 31st. The final item for this evening is the Easy Screen platform. The daily health screening is a really, really important part of our reopening. I think what you have seen from us is we're taking a very careful approach, a very thoughtful approach to the reopening. I understand that if a student does test positive for COVID, there's a high likelihood that our schools have to close. I understand that. If that were to be the case, and I hope it's never the case, if that were to be the case, I will know that it is not because it was something that we did not do. We are taking every single possible precaution to make sure our students, faculty, and staff are safe and healthy. And we take that really seriously. And a really serious and important part of that is the screening mechanism in the morning. I know sometimes it doesn't work. We'll screen the student when they come in. The temperature checks, we're asking that you take the temperature at home because you can't complete the screening without attesting to a temperature being less than 100.0. We are also taking temperatures at school, but please understand that they're two very different strategies that we're employing here. The temperature check at school does just that. It checks a temperature. It doesn't assess COVID-like symptoms that are noted in the Easy Screen app. It doesn't assess contact to a confirmed positive within the last 14 days or travel to one of the New York State Department of Health quarantine lists. So the screening application, Easy Screen, provides a different purpose than the temperature screening. They complement each other, but one does not offset the other. So I understand the thinking is, well, they're going to take temperatures at the school anyway. Easy Screen is a little different and it's more comprehensive in the approach. If you haven't completed the Easy Screen in a given day, you can expect a phone call from us. After a few more days, you can expect a phone call from the principal, and then after a few more days, you'll expect a phone call from me. So the expectation is that you'll complete the screening. It really is to just, it's for all of us. It's one of the measures that we're taking amongst many measures. And now that we have answered some of the really important safety questions about our reopening, the ventilation, those upgrades have been made, and the MERV 13 filtering has been retrofitted into our central end window and mini split air conditioned systems. The barriers are installed in the middle school and high school cafeterias that just promote the social distancing. The portable sinks are available. The hand sanitizing stations are available. The PPE, personal protective equipment is all out. The social distancing is in place. We're disinfecting every space every day. So we're going through the typical cleaning that we normally would, but we are going through with the Clorox 360 machine every night in all of our schools. We also are at the middle school, high school, disinfecting the desks with a hydrogen peroxide based solution that is on the EPA safe list of solutions to use at the middle school, high school. We're using just an alcohol-based wipe, which is also determined safe at the elementary schools to wipe down the desks after lunch. And we're taking every measure possible. I really ask if you can kindly be sure that the screening is completed prior to your child coming to school. That would just be such a huge help for us as a school district. And that's where I'll leave the update. Now, Mrs. O'Shea, there are some questions. I'm not seeing them, so if you want to just share some of the questions, I see me and you and Ms. Forsberg and Ms. Burns on my screen.
There's quite a number of questions, so I'm trying to cluster them together in category.
Very good.
We'll certainly get to many, if not most, but for those that we don't answer as completely as individuals would like, you can certainly email us and we can get you a more specific answer afterwards. The first question came in from David, and it was, when is picture day? David, I'm just going to ask you to go back in and put which particular building you're looking for and an email address, and I can then send you that information. I don't know all the individual buildings picture days at this moment. Then we had a couple of questions about health and safety. So if my child is ill with upper respiratory infection symptoms like a fever, do they need to have a COVID test before being allowed back at school? And the answer to that is not necessarily, but they do need to come with a doctor's note that they've been cleared to return to school.
Right. We talk to our medical director, and I speak to our medical director at least 3, 4, 5 times a day, at least. Yesterday it was 6 times, and Monday it was only twice. We were closed. There weren't many student items, but on Friday it was 5 times. Today it was often. I anticipate tomorrow being similar. We go through everything case by case. So if the student has symptoms and has another condition that is proven, or the physician has tested them already for COVID and it's negative, they're permitted to return. It's case by case. We would like to see the testing be done. We absolutely would like to see the testing be done. If there's any reason to suspect that there's the potential for COVID with the child, then we would like to see that done. Is it a requirement? It's case by case. In that case, you'll contact the school nurse and we will advise you. More times than not, I'm seeing COVID tests being implemented. The vast majority of the times, not just more times than not.
And the next question is, if my child is ill on a school day, can he or she join the remote program for that day? So these are questions that we've experienced from others, and we are certainly talking about it with our teachers and our building administrators. That's an easier ask on the 7 through 12 grades, where teachers have the students and are doing their instruction for all students every day. At the elementary level, it's a little bit more challenging because the groups of students are changing. So it is something we're looking at and seeing how we can implement, but we're just not there right at this moment for how that could potentially look. We are utilizing different staff in person and on the days that the students are home. So it's a little bit, we just have to make sure we can align what our expectations are for everyone. Doing that. One parent just shared some frustrations about the bus, and please know that every bus concern that's been called into either our transportation office or our buildings comes to this office, and it's part of the conversations that Dr. Hattar and Mr. Cole have with the bus company. So please know that your concerns, if you're getting to the bus department here, the transportation department, or to our buildings, they do rise to our level, and we are aware of them. Teachers are using different platforms, Google Meet, Zoom. Why can't all teachers use a consistent platform? It would be easier for all. That is certainly a consideration, and many of our teachers became used to the Zoom model from the spring. And what Zoom was offering us was the opportunity to do breakout rooms for students. So you can group students together and the teacher can kind of facilitate the work between the different groups. Google Meet doesn't have that feature yet, although it's coming. So it really became instructionally what worked best for the teachers to utilize for what they were trying to do with their students. So that's pretty much why there is some differences that you see. Our goal is to continue to give all teachers the opportunity to develop the skill to teach remotely and to feel comfortable with the platforms, but we also recognize how does that translate to parents who are at home supporting students, and how can we make that process easier as well. Certainly something that we consider. I'm jumping around now, so I'm not necessarily in a particular order. If there's a 3-hour delay on Mondays, what happens with the kids that go to BOCES, and when does the going in person on Mondays start?
So the going in person on Mondays starts on October 19th. That's an A-day cohort attending on the 19th. On the 26th, it's a B-day, and then it just follows that model. With regard to the BOCES, a lot of it has to do is BOCES open on that day? So if BOCES is open, then we likely are open because we make the decision with BOCES. So the student would still then be able to participate in their BOCES program on that day.
So the question about what about full remote versus half day on Mondays in October? I'm assuming that means if there is a late start for our in-person students, what does that do for the fully remote students?
No, I think the way I'm interpreting that is, can we consider having it as a full remote day in lieu of the half day, maybe? Our goal is to get the children back into schools. We want the children back here in person. That's an important objective for us. This is one step toward meeting that objective. I'm not suggesting the objective has been met, but I'm suggesting that this is one step toward meeting that objective, is bringing the children in for the partial day. Can students participate in the remote option? There has been enough question on that, and that's something that we absolutely are working toward, is offering a remote option for students who aren't able to attend on the day for whatever reason and whatever circumstance. We are working through that. We're working to understand how the attendance would be marked, because if they're physically supposed to be in school and they're not physically in school, but they are participating remotely, attendance is a legal document. So it's not as simple of a question as, well, you mark them here, they were present, right? But as a legal document, how are we treating that? So those are the items that we're working through. But yes, we are looking at at the remote option on those Mondays.
A remote day for a hybrid student and a remote day for a fully remote student are drastically different. Why can't a hybrid student get a full day of remote instruction on their respective remote day? So to me, that's a specific elementary question, K-5 or K-5. Right now, we are utilizing teams of teachers, 2 to 3 teachers, to teach the students both in person and at home on the off days. They are getting very specific instruction on the days that they are here, very intense instruction on the days that they're in person. We're able to get through more content in person. And then on the remote day, we're picking up from where that teacher left off. So it is certainly less time, but it is equivalent in terms of the content that we're trying to be sure we're moving forward. And that's another reason why we were looking to continue some professional development and collaboration time on the Mondays, because there is so much in terms of our timelines that we're looking at and how we're working collaboratively on a grade level to be sure we're in step with our instruction as we continue through the year.
And the idea of even on a fully remote model. So our middle school and high school are following their exact schedule. They're working through the exact schedule. However, they're not online for the 7-hour day throughout the course of the school day. They're going in for a portion of the lesson. And that may vary. That will vary. The lesson to lesson, class to class. So once they conclude the portion of the lesson that then transitions to independent work, the students will go off of the meet. Then the next class comes and the students have to get back on to period 2. They'll go through the portion of the meet that's the whole class portion, and the independent work, they'll work independently. and then they'll come back on for period 3 and they'll move through their schedule. In some cases, the students are on for the full period. At the elementary level, there's limited staffing. The teacher can be in one place at one time. So even in models where all of the students are in and they're in different locations, there's one teacher. And that's certainly a consideration as well. There's one instructor in the class. The model of the cameras is something that concerns me. So why can't we put cameras in? First of all, pedagogically, I don't think it's the most sound approach to have cameras. Screen sharing is a little bit different. And again, I don't know how you're making the assumption at the K-5 level that every lesson is a screen share or screen based. There's a lot of literature that's used. There are anchor charts that we point to. So if you were on the screen and I'm pointing to a chart to my students in front of me to provide them with a point of reference, you won't necessarily get that. With the masks on, it's sometimes hard to hear what the teachers are saying. It's hard to see what's happening. And there are manipulatives that are used in mathematics that are just more of a hands-on approach that is more difficult to capture in a screen share model or in a camera that's focusing on the front of the room. So we wanted our children to have more live, synchronous, engaging experiences and conversations with their teachers and have the direct learning happening that's targeted right to the students on the screen or targeted to the students in front of us. And that, I believe, is the model that we're delivering to our students. And it's something that we talk to about the planning time, but it's also something that won't result in a 7-hour day of the children sitting in front of a screen or a 5-hour day of the children sitting in front of the screen. So I have seen varying extents, and a lot of it's a function of the age of the child. Can a 5-year-old, can a 6-year-old sit in front of a computer screen for 2.5 or 3 hours and focus on, even if it's broken up during the course of the day? That's also a stretch. Certainly at the upper elementary grades, it's more feasible. But for a 5-year-old, or some children are 4 years old at this point, that's a challenge.
So there are a few questions here that are specific to a building and a practice that's happening that a parent is.
So can we have them email, can that, if it's specific to a building, email the school building?
So, and I think I would like to share that the questions that are coming in expressing a concern about the time the instruction starts, the length of the meeting time in person, not feeling that there's enough screen time. Those are things that we're hearing all of your questions now. We're gathering them. We're going to be continuing to meet with the principals and the teachers to fine tune our practice. Now that we've been here for a number of weeks, how can we respond to a lot of the things that are being raised and modify what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about the time the instruction is starting, so the teachers are released from their class on a rotational basis. We're not bringing in additional staff. We're using our staff and moving them around. So it's not that we have additional staff that we can just spread out and have everyone start at 9 a.m. There are different times that teachers are going through on the rotation. So regardless of what time it starts, the number of minutes of instruction, the actual time online should be consistent. And if that's not the case, it's probably a conversation that would be had at the building level to just better understand that. But the duration of instruction, the asynchronous assignments may be pushed at the front of the day and the live assignments are pushed toward the end of the day. So that may be a function of scheduling, but the instructional time that's live and synchronous and the instructional time that's asynchronous should be consistent across the entire grade level.
Quite a number of questions are coming in about, again, why aren't we doing the full day on the Mondays, and could elementary come in on full days and opening for the full day? I think you clarified that earlier, Dr. Hattar, in terms of us needing some time to continue to collaborate our teachers and to develop the continue the professional development to be sure that our practices are in line with best practices and our teachers are in a good position to continue this model long term. And then again, some questions about when will we make the decision for going beyond the 3-hour delayed start on Mondays.
Yeah, I'm not sure as to when exactly that decision. I think I shared that a little earlier in the presentation, and that may have been asked. In fairness, that question may have been asked prior to me addressing it. We haven't begun the model. We're still 2.5 weeks away from the model that welcomes students back on Mondays. I'd like to see how the 3-hour planning time works with our faculty and staff. I'd like to see if there are other opportunities that I can find during the instructional day, whether it's on a Monday, whether it's some kind of after school time, some kind of in school time. I think we need to see how that Monday operates first and actually live through it. But we are aggressively working toward bringing our students back full days on Mondays. I think that's the objective here. I don't think we've reached the objective. I think we're incrementally working toward the objective. My fear, and we've seen this in the region, is that we work too quickly and we go too fast and we set back our progress, and it results in something that we don't want, which is to result in a fully remote model and our students are home for 2 weeks or for whatever the time is. So we're being really thoughtful here and really careful, and we're progressing very carefully. So in terms of the date, can you put a date on it? Not today. I can't put a date on it today.
There's a question. There's a question here that speaks to concern over how we are going to make up the curriculum given the lost instructional time, particularly at the high school. At the high school, the teachers are continuing their instruction each day. We are not missing instruction. The way the students are participating in the instruction looks differently. Part of the reason why we are continuing to look for the late arrival on Mondays is to continue to look at our curriculum and what are the core areas that we need to be sure we're covering, and how are we delivering that in a way that is differentiated in this model for all students so that they continue to move forward. So we are hopeful that we will get there.
And with regard to the high school, right, that question was focused to the high school, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, with regard to the high school, and I guess you could say the same about the middle school as well, in terms of the model, and the elementary for that matter as well. Every day is new learning. It's not that the remote day is a review day. I just want to clarify that. If the student misses Wednesday's lesson, whether they're in school or they're remote, they've missed a portion of new learning that happened in that class. So I just want to clarify that and make sure that understanding is communicated clearly. There is new learning happening. Now, of course, if there's an assessment or an exam on a Friday, might I spend Thursday reviewing for it and we're not doing new learning on that day? Yes, that's an absolute possibility. Absent those, or if students I noticed struggled with a concept and I said, gee, I really need to go back and give that topic a little more time, then yes, you may see the same topic happening. But the rest of the time, which is the vast majority of the time, there's new learning happening every day. That's K-12. There's new learning happening. So I just wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Some specifics, questions related to a schedule of a specific building on a Monday, as well as specific special education programs. Those will be clarified by the building or the PPS office. So you'll get those answers to those questions. There's a question.
Yeah, there's one question that came through. I think one of the panelists sent this to me. I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
For Mondays, whether it's A day or B day, all remote or hybrid, will everyone be on a 3-hour delay? Yes, we need all faculty to participate in the training. Everyone will be on the 3-hour delay. Everyone will participate in the training. The entire team of the grade levels will work with their respective partners to prepare and to coordinate and to collaborate and participate in the training. So yes, A day, B day, regardless of the model, everyone is on a 3-hour delayed opening because their teachers will be encumbered in the trainings. And I just also want to clarify as well, the trainings, when we talk about the staff development and the trainings, this is not training in health and safety protocols. This is not training in arrival and dismissal procedures and recess procedures. That was done. That's all completed. Those are all in the past. Will we practice them? Of course we will. But lockdown drills, fire drills, those are all done. This is not the training and the planning that we're talking about. We're talking more about instructional planning, and there's a dynamic nature to the instructional planning. So I'm sorry that I didn't clarify that sooner. The nature of the planning is not planning in health and safety and reopening protocols and personal protective equipment and hygiene and identifying COVID symptoms. That is all well behind us. Our staff has undergone that level of training. This is instructional planning and collaboration and working across the grade level to make sure that we're designing and implementing lessons and creating curricular resources that we can now put out to our students in that given week. And so I just wanted to clarify that point, because I'm guessing that may have also been on the minds of some people viewing.
If your child receives free lunch, do we still need to fill out a form to be
Yes.
sent? Yes, always.
Yes, the free and reduced price lunch form. I'll refer you to, there was a letter that came out from the school district. I believe it was Thursday, September 24th, if my memory serves me correctly. September 24th, there was a letter that came out. It spoke to the process for free lunch. It provided a lot more detail than I was able to provide you in the overview. But yes, students who qualify for free and reduced price lunch still do need to complete the free and reduced price lunch form. Why? Because this program expires December 31st. So to continue the program moving forward, certainly the form needs to be filed.
Some questions about the remote students entitled to order lunch and pick it up.
Yeah, students who are on the remote learning plan, whether they're fully remote or whether they're on the remote day of the hybrid model, can order lunch. They can, regardless of what school they attend, kindergarten to 12th grade, there is one location for pickup, and that is at the high school. So even if your child attends Mohansick or Brookside or Crampond, the high school is where the food will be picked up. There is a security personnel at the top of the driveway. You tell them that you're here to pick up lunch, and they will direct you where to go down the driveway. And you don't have to leave your car for it. You'll remain in your vehicle, and we have cafeteria staff who will bring that out. The email address is yorktowngrabandgo@yorktown.org for additional information, and you may certainly access that email address so that you can obtain the times for the meal service, the ordering process. It's also all on the website as well. Under the lunch menus tab, there are 2 forms that speak to the ordering.
Okay. There's questions regarding grading and how elementary students will be graded for their report cards. It will be similar to how we've done it in the past. We will be looking at the standards and how students are performing in that way, and our teachers will be assessing students similarly to how they've done in the past. That's part of the work we're looking at on Mondays, is assessment in this model, and how does that look?
Good.
I'm slowly scrolling. Give me a second. Okay, high school picture day.
It's 2 for picture day now.
Will fully remote students be included in picture day?
That's, I would address that to the buildings and have that conversation with the buildings. I'm not sure what the mechanism is for that. And I believe it's structured differently. The picture day model is structured differently in the building. So that would be something I would refer back to the schools.
I've heard from many people that children are not spaced on the bus. They sit next to each other and masks are not enforced. There were a couple of questions about masks on the bus.
Okay, so masks are required on the bus. Whether they're enforced or not is something that I'll look into with the bus company. In truth, we have 28 of 71 buses that have a monitor on them. So the monitor can help enforce that. Now the question comes in, well, why can't we put monitors on every bus? Well, monitors on every bus is another $1.5 million expenditure for the school district. And that's just monies that we don't have. With regard to the enforcement of the masks on the bus, it's our expectation that your children will wear the masks coming on the bus. The bus driver has to drive. The bus driver will make announcements, make sure your masks are on, please put your masks on, but the bus driver is driving. So it's my expectation that students will continue to wear their masks. It's a responsibility that we all have, and the expectation is that masks are worn. The expectation is that they are socially distant on the bus, and the exception being siblings. Siblings may sit together. So sometimes I've seen two children on the bus together, and I said, "Hey, why are you on the bus together?" Like, "That's my big sister." "Okay, that's great. Have a great day." So I've seen siblings on the bus sitting together. They should be socially distant. The buses are underutilized at this point. We have, and I think that's starting to change now. Day 10, I'm seeing increased ridership. The numbers on the bus are slowly creeping up. But many families are driving their children into school, which is creating some other traffic circumstances for us. But the students have more than enough room on the buses to be socially distant, and that's certainly our expectation.
Just based on a few questions, I just want to clarify that for the 3-hour delay schedules on Monday, that will be for our fully remote, our hybrid students, and our in-person students will all be on the same 3-hour delayed schedule. Specific to grades 7 through 12, those students will follow their same day schedule, period by period schedule, just with shortened periods. Mm-hmm. And there is no lunch in the buildings on a 3-hour delay schedule.
And that's the other piece of it, is that the instructional time is maximized at that point, because especially at the elementary level, the lunch program takes time to get everyone ready for lunch and get their lunch bags and get everyone situated, get the hands washed, and then have recess. So it's fully an instructional day from when they arrive to when they depart.
Children in the French Hill Remote Learning Center, mm-hmm. Once the day of half days on Monday begin, do we get charged the same price?
So let's see if we can understand that question.
So if someone is going for just the morning
if they're going for just the morning, the cost for just the morning, so if for somebody who's arriving on their half day, so the only reason a student would be going for just the morning is that the student's on their half day at that point. They're on their instructional day on that point. So it's a 3-hour delay a day. I'm in the A cohort, let's say. I get to French Hill at 7:30 in the morning, and until whenever the bus comes to pick me up. And when I say whenever the bus comes to pick me up, if I'm a 6th grader, it's a different time. If I'm at Crampond, it's a different time. If I'm at Mohansick or Brookside, it's a different time. So whatever that time is that the bus comes to pick me up, the cost for that portion of the day, we're looking at somewhere between $20 and $25. I think where we are right now is $22.50. For a student who's there for the full day, from 8 to 4, they would pay the same daily amount that's being paid. I believe it's $45 for the full day.
The question regarding providing a monthly calendar for October and moving forward, similar to one that was created for September, that's certainly something we can do.
Yeah, I have that prepared. That'll go out with my letter. Tomorrow's Thursday. I believe my follow-up letter will come out Friday, and that will include the October calendar. And I'll just mind you, the Monday, October 5th, is consistent with the model that we've been practicing in September 14th and September 21st. So October 5th is still a fully remote. So it's, again, the teachers will have their staff development time, and they will have their student time during the course of the day. So that day, October 5th, will feel similar to September 14th and 21st. October 12th, we're closed for Columbus Day, and then October 19th is when the model would begin.
Did we talk about school clubs?
We did. We talked about after-school clubs, and some of the questions, I'm not sure if there's a timestamp feature, so we're at 8:09. I think we finished the presentation at about 7:37, if my memory serves me correctly. So some of the timestamps may be after we concluded the presentation. So clubs, we are going to be running clubs at this point. We are virtual with the clubs. I would like us to eventually transition to in-person clubs. The athletic portion of our extracurricular program is in person. As of right now, there's nothing indoors in terms of athletics. Everything is outside. And they're obviously students on a limited basis and carefully who need to change. We're creating places for them to be able to change, whether it's one or two students at a time going into a locker room. But athletics is in person, but everything again is outside.
And I know that Mrs. Horowitz was planning to release information this week regarding the middle school clubs. I'm not sure if that's gone out yet, but that was her intention. And those will also be virtual for now. There's a couple of questions regarding why haven't we hired additional staff to meet these needs, and
yeah, once the voters approve a budget, once the voters approve the budget, we're fixed in terms of what we're able to spend. So yes, did we go out and buy PPE? Absolutely, we had to. It was a mandate from the state. So what does that mean? It means that we're going to be foregoing some other things for this school year. So those are the decisions that we've had to make in terms of staff. When you talk about and this is my own personal mask, but when you talk about a 50 cent or $1 mask, it's different than when you start talking about personnel. That's where the costs really start to escalate quickly. So have we hired some additional support staff? Yes, we have hired some support staff in our health office, and that is much needed. Our nurses are doing an amazing job. I'm so impressed by the work of our nurses. They are just extraordinary professionals. They are inundated. So yes, we did put additional support in the health offices, and that was a really important step for us. So, and even with that, they're still just inundated. They're the ones who are helping with the easy screen, making sure everybody is in line. I speak to most of the nurses, I would say, every day, or we email every day, just with an update on certain medical situations and circumstances, or we'll be on the phone with the school doctor together. And our nurses have just been phenomenal. So we have provided additional support in the health offices of each of our schools.
And we've also increased the from part-time to full-time some of our remedial staff at the elementary level. We are looking to bring on some additional special education support for our students. So we are increasing our staff to respond to some of these needs. When will the third party take over the remote learning?
So we're thinking that that's going to happen at some point in November. I don't know when in November that'll happen. I can tell you it's 1010 Recreation, and it's led by a gentleman named Joe Duranko, who has been just terrific to work with, really committed to the students, parent in our community, and has just been wonderful to work with. So I'm looking forward to his assuming the program. And the important thing is the staff within the program, we believe, will remain consistent. We have some wonderful staff in the program. I've heard just great things about the French Hill program at this point, and I'm sure under Joe's leadership that'll continue. David Lease has been wonderful in the program, and I'm sure that'll be a great transition to Joe.
So additional questions regarding masks and mask breaks.
So there are mask breaks, and that's more at the granular level within the classrooms. A lot of it's a function of, well, when is lunch and when can we get outside? Many of the mask breaks are happening outside. Many of the mask breaks are happening during lunch, and at different points during the day, the students are able to take down or take off their masks and have that mask break. That's more of a question within the individual classroom. We have 314 different instructional spaces within the district, and I don't know if there's necessarily, I don't know if I can comment on every one of the mask spaces, breaks.
There's a question regarding some in-person day remedial support, such as leveled reading groups. It is our intention to move forward with that process. We'll be administering the STAR reading and math assessments to students. You'll get some information about that. That helps guide us in developing our reading groups and our remedial support.
And
The answer to that is yes.
so should we take 2 more?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um,
I'm looking.
mhm.
Is there a point during the school year that the Department of Health will perhaps reevaluate the social distancing? Could full in-person school be possible this year?
I sure hope so. I sure hope so, because ultimately what keeps the capacity down is the 6-foot space. When you have to space your desks 6 feet apart, you can only fit so many desks in the classroom. So I sure hope so. I don't know if it will happen. I really don't know. We're heading into a flu season. I think we need to see how that works out. Hopefully the numbers can stay low and that can be considered. So we have 3 different agencies that we're looking at. We're looking at the Department of Health, we're looking at the State Education Department, and we're looking at our medical director. So all 3 would have to ultimately give us the okay to relax. I know the American Academy of Pediatrics has talked about 3 feet, but they're not the organization that governs us, to whom we answer. So the State Education Department is our regulatory entity, and 6 feet has been the number thus far. I'm hoping they do relax it.
So I think the majority of the other questions that I'm seeing are concerns regarding specific programs that now we have that information in front of us, and we can look to see that how some of the concerns that are raised, we can look to enhance what we're doing. I don't.
One of the things I'll add is just in terms of the communication between the community and the school district on testing and on COVID symptoms, please keep us informed. Please share the information with the school nurse in the building. If your child's not well, if your child is awaiting a test, the child should not be in school as they're awaiting a test. If there's a reason for them being tested, there's good enough reason for them to stay, for the student to stay out of school. It's for everyone's safety, and we do have to think long-term on this, and we have to think big picture on this. So while we're not requiring faculty and staff to be tested every day or regularly, we're not requiring testing. However, we are helping to arrange for testing. We have a wonderful partnership with one of the local urgent cares in town, and they have been just wonderful, terrific partners. Dr. Gupta and his team at AFC Urgent Care they've been just so responsive and wonderful partners to work with and supportive of the work of the district. So if a student is in need of a test, they have their physician that they can go see. The AFC Urgent Care is just with whom we've interacted with and have formed a relationship. Dr. Gupta is contracted with the district. He also is just working very, very closely with our medical director, Dr. Corsaro, who is certainly just brilliant in his field, and his expertise is something that I lean heavily on each day. So I would just ask that you keep the communication with your school's nurse so that we can make sure that we're acting as cautiously and as safely as possible for everyone. The information is all confidential. It's all protected by federal privacy laws, so there will be no breach of the confidentiality. And it's just something that I would just implore you to maintain that communication, because that's ultimately how we're going to continue to keep our schools operating. If your child's not feeling well, they should stay home. They should stay home. I know under normal circumstances, we would have our children come to school and say, okay, you'll be okay. It's just the sniffles. We have to be really careful in this environment and during a pandemic. There's no definitive outcome, which is why we have to proceed so cautiously here. So if your child's not feeling well, please err on the side of caution. Let us know if there's a fever. Please let us know. Please keep your child home in that regard. Ultimately, it's for the benefit of the district, benefit of the children, benefit of your child and all of our children. So, Mrs. O'Shea, anything else to conclude?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Well, I thank you all for joining us. If your question wasn't answered, it may have been answered earlier in the presentation. We began right at 7 o'clock, so I would encourage you to watch the presentation online once it's posted to our website. I'll be sending out a letter to follow up this evening's presentation that'll likely go out on Friday. And if not on barring an emergency, it may go out on Monday. That's quite a possibility as well. So I share all of that information with you. If there are still questions that have resulted after watching